hello.
Oh, hello.
There's a lot of
my glasses.
Stuff going on tonight.
Yeah, there is actually.
They convert to raids tonight.
Oh, really?
They moved it?
They moved it tonight for this week only, so they had more time with the expansion.
Oh,
What
by a day?
What expansion?
I don't know.
They're talking about the Boomsday Project, right?
Yes,
Probably.
of course.
Yeah.
Is that
It's
did
the
that
only
come out
notable one
Tuesday
that's
as
come out
well?
recently. The previous Tuesday.
So much stuff came out last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like the Battle for Lordaeron dropped, the Boomsday came out, and then Whitemane dropped.
Yeah, it was too much, actually.
It was a really bad
actually
day for
stressful.
Undead.
I'm gonna admit something here that I haven't admitted yet. I've been close to, and I've stated that I've been it's been hard for me to get back in Hearthstone. I have completely lost interest in Hearthstone at this point.
Dang.
Same. But
Not me.
that's been true for a long time for me.
I think it has been for me. I just haven't wanted to admit it. Because there was a hope.
I'll make
because
up for you guys.
and it's not that I don't like the game. I do enjoy it, but it's too expensive to feel like to get caught up now.
Yeah, depending. But yeah.
Maybe when the next year or whatever resets to where it goes
That's
back
true.
to where it's just the base cards and then that new expansion or whatever. Maybe I'll hop back in.
Yeah. Be good.
Whew.
I'm excited. We got some good
Yeah.
stuff to talk about tonight.
We do, if I can talk. And apologies, guys. I still have this cough. I don't have a cold or something. It's just a cough. So I'm going to try and not cough into the mic, but I may.
You just made me cough.
Oh,
And I haven't had one until right now. So I don't know if you can transmit stuff electronically, but hey.
you can. And it's actually that just white envelope that didn't seem like it had anything in it that I mailed you.
Oh, that's what that was.
Unless you haven't gotten that yet. In which case,
No, I got
there's
it.
a really cool thing inside of it. You should open it up.
I have, yeah.
Is it candy?
Yes. It's candy.
Tasted like candy, kind of.
Good.
All right.
Mhm.
We are going to do the thing. I imagine it's that time. Are we?
Lords of the Storm is like the Postal Service. Neither rain, nor sleet, nor disease, nor coughing fits shall keep us from doing a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
Let's just do it. Stop
We do.
talking.
Ooh, that's just to point out though. Our thing is new-ish on the launcher. It's
Oh, yeah, let's do this.
pretty red color.
Kind of reddish
Ooh.
Sally-ish. Yeah, it's good.
I like it.
Oh, it's awesome. I like it.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay. Whew, here we go. We're gonna do it. This episode of Lords of the Storm is brought to you by our sponsors over at Patreon, where you, yes you, can also support the show. Just head over to patreon.com/Lords of the Storm to become a patron today.
Heroes, gather tribute and earn my favor. What do you say? Are you ready to begin?
What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 179 of Lords of the Storm, Heroes of the Storm podcast. My name is Greg Gizmozord Parker, and I am dying. But no. Oh my gosh.
Was that like an actual admission? Like, should we?
Well, have you
Should
guys
you start checking things off your bucket list, or what's up?
have you guys seen that back when vines were a thing? It's like a kid's riding through the woods on a bike, and he hits a tree, and his friend's just laughing, and the kid's just like, "I'm dying," and he's really scared.
Oh.
Anyway, that's what that is.
I feel like you just summed up the whole video
Yep.
because 6 seconds or whatever it is.
That's what vines are. You should still totally check it out. I don't know. But I'm joined tonight, of course, by the Zord Lords themselves, Mr. Kevin Multi-Zord Ellis and Ryan TBK Zord Reader. And on this week's episode, the anticipated ranked AMA happened this last week, The Western clash comes to a close while the Eastern clash is nearing ever closer. And we talk some Sally in this week's Hero of the Week. But first, let's see how the other Zords are doing. TBK, how are you doing? What have you been up to in gaming this last week, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm actually refreshed. I just got back from vacation today. Rode lots of roller coasters. So many roller coasters. Turns out when you go to the theme park, the week that all the kids go back in school, you can walk onto everything. So that was super nice. Yeah, it was super nice. Gaming wise, I've been, of course, playing lots of Heroes. I've been playing a ton of Sally, and I love her so much. Super fun kit. One of my favorite heroes that has been released here recently. And, of course, World of Warcraft, which I actually have not started yet because I've been gone all weekend and up until today. So
you only Zandalar sometimes, whereas I Zandalar forever, is what you're trying to tell me here.
Is that the new meme?
No, it's in the game, dude.
Oh, is it really?
Like they must have seen the of course the Black Panther movie and then gone in and said, no, we have to do this. They must have rewritten a bunch of voice lines, quest text. It's all over the game.
Change this. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I'm guessing that's how they did it.
I love it so much. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it because tomorrow, me and a few buddies are all going to do an all-day World of Warcraft LAN and do some leveling, and that'll be a ton of fun. And then Friday, I've got the team league going again, so maybe I'll get a breakout white main. Who knows? I think she could be good.
Very interesting. Multi, how are you doing this evening, sir? And what have you been up to this last week?
I should have asked off for that day too, TBK, join you guys, but just didn't in time. So, I mean, apart from work, I'm also completely divorced from reality. Like, I'm so into WoW and Heroes and Hearthstone right now that I can't really think about much else very much. So, it's one of those things. But yeah, no, I've been in WoW a bit, just trying to level up. I'm kind of impressed by how fast some people level. Like the people who stocked up on Goblin gliders and did all this stuff. There's power levelers, like speed runners, if you will, that apparently cleared it, the 110 to 120 in 5 hours played time. So it's pretty nuts. Yeah. But I'm not that guy. I'm trying to soak in the world a little bit and kind of enjoy myself a little bit. Read some quest text for once, because yes, why not? They brought in the Tortolans from Hearthstone. But anyway, yeah, I've been playing some Heroes too, of course. Definitely in love with Sally. I actually hadn't tried one of our builds we're going to cover today until today, but I've actually kind of gone 180 on the build path that I want to do. So we'll get into all that, but it's been a lot of fun. She is to again answer a question we've had previously. Definite solo heal potential, especially with that Q build.
Yeah. I would agree there. Myself this week, I've been super sad, so I've been wanting to do lots of things. But of course, a ton of stuff has happened. The expansion did come out for World of Warcraft. I got to play an hour of that on Monday night. I got up to 111. Woo. But it's been nice for me because this is the first expansion where I'm not hardcore raiding, because typically I would be one of those grinders just trying to level up as quick as I could. So I, as well, am also reading quest text, which is weird.
Isn't it?
I enjoy it. It's good.
Luckily, it's not all worth reading. Some of them are still, I need you to pick up these 10 gloops of tar. And it's okay. But some
of those gloops of tar won't actually exist. You'll think they exist, but as soon as you open their inventory, because they all have a magical bag, it's not actually there.
Dang.
It's like those
there's no tar on the tar monster.
Zehevra
That's
hooves.
Been a problem for a really long time.
Yeah, Zehevra, or however you say that, hooves, and the Barons.
Oh, yes.
There's a ton of those things walking around with no hooves. I don't know how they do it.
They're just walking on bloody stumps.
Yeah,
is what they're doing.
They're stumps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But no, that's been fun. And then before that came out this weekend, I was able to get some more games in on Sally as she went live, and I too am pretty stoked on her. I think she feels really nice, Again, I'm not a support player. There's not been a ton of supports that I really enjoy playing, but she seems to be one of them. So excited for that. Let's go ahead and get on into the show. Real quick before we do, we have a Patreon update, a new patron, Benjamin F. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you to all of our patrons out there who support the show. Again, all that stuff goes back in to allow us and help us to make the show better. So we appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's hop on into the news. All right, first up, Blizzard is currently having a fan art contest, a t-shirt contest to be exact, and you can enter this with your own original t-shirt artwork. It's presented by Hot Topic and Box Lunch. I've never heard of Box Lunch. Do you guys know what that is?
I mean, I know what a box lunch is, like lunch that you put in a box. You know, like
I used to
turkey sandwich.
bring those when I went to school.
Yeah,
Sometimes when I go to work, still you bring a box lunch.
Oh yeah, no, that is an affordable way to, budget.
I've never found like a T-shirt that has fan art created on it in my boxed lunch.
It's true.
But if I did, I'd probably be pretty stoked.
It's kind of
I
like
used to put. Go ahead.
it's like they have. I got them for a while. The loot crates. What if there was a box lunch that was like loot crate, where once a month you got a lunch box and then it had a T-shirt in it too.
Maybe that's the service. I don't know. I feel like I would
That's
Google
a new
this
service.
and just
I
find
don't think
box
that
lunches.
exists yet.
Yeah.
I don't think that exists yet.
It's the new hot thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yes, you can enter this. It is original design inspired by any of the Blizzard entertainment universes. So again, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Hearthstone, and Heroes of the Storm. You can enter submissions from, well, I guess it's already started. You have until, well, tomorrow. So, so if you're listening to this live, you can still do it. But it's actually pretty cool because the grand prize is $2,000 in potential for your design to be featured on a product that is going to be at Hot Topic or Box Lunch or both. So maybe Box Lunch is a store or an online thing.
That would make sense.
I still don't think they are anything but a food service.
I'm
And
Googling
I'm not
it.
even gonna find out. I don't even want to know.
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. I'm not Googling it.
Maybe
No one in the chat tell us what this is either.
Yeah, maybe instead of so it's like at Hot Topic, you would have your design printed on the shirt. And then at Box Lunch, you would have your design printed on a piece of bread.
Okay.
Kind of like how they do with birthday cakes.
Maybe it's burnt in with a toaster. You know how every now and then there's some image that shows up on a piece of toast and the person sells it for like $1 million. Maybe that's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
It's just Diablo shows
what's
up on
this-
your toast.
What's this bread you got today, Mom? Oh, it's Heroes of the Storm bread, Jimmy.
Yeah. I feel like that's a Heroes one's doable. A little Nexicon in there.
Yeah, sure.
Or
A
the ruins.
Nexagon in every slice.
Exactly. But the judges, of course, are going to be people from Hot Topic, Box Lunch, and of course Blizzard. And I will say, the vice president of Hot Topic does not look how I imagined the vice president of Hot Topic would look. But
Where is this? At the bottom?
It's at the very bottom. But he is a Night Elf Druid, so that's cool. Yeah, he plays World of Warcraft. But I'm excited to see these designs. Hopefully they make, some of the top ones public here, so we can take a look. Because all the Blizzard, people around the Blizzard universes, all the fans and stuff, like the art and stuff that you see at BlizzCon, is always incredible. Like there's a ton of talented people in the Blizzard community, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we talked last week. They've been doing these series of Ask Me Anythings on Reddit. And this last week, I think, was probably the most anticipated one of this series. And that, of course, is the ranked AMA. And this did happen, I think, like the day after our show last week.
Yeah, last Thursday.
Right. So it's been a little while, but
It has.
people may not have read into all of it, so we can cover it a little bit, right?
For sure. And TBK, I warned you about this before the show, but I'm going to pass this over to you, at least for a little bit, to carry us through this, because I'm struggling right now. Gizmo's struggling.
Poor Gizmo. It's okay. I just wanted to kind of hit on a few highlights of this because, like you said, this has been out for a while, but there are a few things that we've talked about in the past that did come up during the AMA. In fact, all the questions that I was going to submit were submitted and highly upvoted by the time that I even saw the question thread. So that's good. That's really good. That means a lot of the Heroes community is on the same page of looking for stuff. We talked about last week a little bit about hero swapping and how that's something that a lot of the other MOBAs have had for a really long time and Heroes still doesn't have. Well, they asked that again, and they said it's one of the most commonly requested features for the Heroes community for ranked play. Yes. Since then, we've continued looking at the roadmap for ranked play. We do have plans to include hero swaps into draft phases for ranked play, but we don't have a timeline. And I think that was probably my most like, oh darn, I'm a little disappointed part of this AMA is that a lot of these, they said no timeline.
Which is kind of strange because in previous AMAs, we've had them. Okay, again, they don't really give a super specific timeline, but they give us at least a general idea of priorities and that kind of thing. Are you saying that we're also kind of lacking that throughout this AMA too? Was that your impression?
It kind of seems like it.
Well,
you wonder if they feel like they burned themselves last time, because it is kind of true.
Maybe.
We can point back to that one and say, oh, well, Alan DeBeery said that blah, blah, blah. This was the priority list. Didn't work out this way. So, I mean, I don't know. I prefer the transparency. I'm sure that's what you were getting at.
yeah, well, and I had mentioned the last time, or maybe not last time, but one of the AMAs they did where they had given the roadmap and stuff, like how that's something I wanted to see. But that is very dangerous to do, because if, that doesn't happen or you fall behind, yes,
Yeah,
it upsets people, which, yes, that happens a lot in this AMA. I think the thing I was most upset about was the performance-based matchmaking. Wasn't mentioned a ton, but it was mentioned kind of coinciding with the lever forgiveness. And that really the only thing said about it, at least that I've seen, was that it was still in the works, but was coming after the lever forgiveness, which they didn't mention. Previously, they had mentioned wanting to kind of get that running in the background this season, as we've talked about, to where we could see it, how it was working, but that it wouldn't actually affect us, which that wasn't even mentioned, unfortunately.
Yeah, they did say that when hero swaps do come, it is likely they will introduce them through unranked draft first and message it well in advance. They have also said they may want to limit it depending on how things go, potentially adding hero swaps but disabling them below a certain league, or allowing players to lock in their hero selection in the order they choose. So it's interesting. It's apparently it's on the roadmap, but there's no timeline. So it's good, but also a little disappointing, is that's again one of the big features in a lot of other MOBA games that has been in the other MOBA games for years and years and years. And it seems kind of like a no-brainer, especially for Hero League and things like that.
And I will push back against the concept of just allowing players to lock in their hero selection in the order they choose. It works in Team League because typically, anyway, at least if you're rolling with 5, you know what you're rolling with, and you guys can plan ahead and have people pick what they want and that sort of thing. But yeah, in Hero League or something like that, no, because then you're going to have the guy that tries to, as fast as he can, lock Gazlowe on a map that it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because, I guess the closest comparison we have to both your example and hero swaps would be League of Legends. And yes, like the being able to just, pick first whoever does it fastest is what happens whenever you try and play the quick match mode of League of Legends, because they don't really have one.
Right.
You have to just try and get it as quick as you can.
And then call your
swaps-
lane too.
Yes.
Top. I'm top.
The swaps, I don't know. Like, yes, it may pressure people into selecting heroes they're unfamiliar with. I don't really think it would be that big of a deal. It's never really an issue in League of Legends, but maybe that's because that player base has been around for a long time, so most people are used to it. But I've never really had any like poor interactions there. Like, if you don't have the
Hopefully-
hero, you don't have it, but maybe
That
they'll find
seems-
another workaround around for it. But
Yeah,
I would like
it's
to see
been it's been literally years since I've played League, but I do remember there being just rare cases of like someone really asking one of the first pick people, "Hey, do you have this? Do you have this? Can you swap with me?" And then it turning into something there. But it's kind of like you're saying there. It happened a little bit, but it was so fringe that it did not outweigh the benefit
yeah,
of having the ability to switch.
it's the same now as, I'm first pick, but I play, I don't know, support, and the
Just
support I
supports,
play isn't
yeah.
like meta support, so now I pick that and I get yelled at for picking that first pick. So there's,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're working on it though.
Yeah, hopefully, if they're planning on an unranked draft iteration first, hopefully we will see that sooner rather than later, because I'd like to at least get it out there and see how it goes in whatever iteration they're wanting. Next up, and this is just kind of an FYI, in the recent white main patch, they actually improved the efficiency of how the game is sending user input over the network. And this resulted in a 2 to 3x reduction of bandwidth consumption, which is pretty huge, improving gameplay experience for players with challenging network conditions, as well as speeding up rejoin in progress for cases when network was a limiting factor. A nice byproduct of that is that the replay files are also smaller in size.
I've noticed this.
Yeah,
I've noticed
FYI.
the consumption change because my computer, for some reason, has been having all these issues lately, and it's been running like smooth as butter since the white main patch. So I don't know if that exactly fixed my issue, but yeah, I have to think it helped.
Yeah. Our first like big optimization thing in quite a while, especially
Yeah.
for the Reconnect system. So that's big. They also were asked when we can expect to see dedicated roles in Quick Match. And they did say they're working currently on hardening the rules for roles in Quick Match and implementing ways in which that people who are picking those roles with low demand are more effectively informed that there are roles in demand now that they could fill. And so this is another one of those things that they've mentioned before, and there's no date tied to it. And I really want to see at least a little bit more hardening of Quick Match rules, where we're seeing tanks in the support and damage. May not always be perfect, but
Right.
that's what they've said they're shooting for. I think they teased this in an AMA way back in April, and I was hoping we would get a date of some sort
Yeah.
for this, and we didn't. So that's it's good, but it's a little disappointing. At the
But
same
when they
time.
say they're working currently on it, that to me reads different than, I mean, we have no timeline. It's coming sooner than we think.
Soon
Perhaps.
TM.
Soon TM, exactly.
But you get what I'm saying, though. It's like I'm getting two messages here, and if they say we're currently working on it, I think, okay, it's on the table versus we don't have a timeline, and that may mean that it's not quite on the table.
I'm
yet.
just hoping we see either a fall or BlizzCon large systems patch that comes with a lot of this stuff they've been talking about.
Yeah.
I can see it.
And speaking of systems, and this was I feel one of the biggest things in the AMA, and something that I've talked about several times in the past, because someone was talking about finding promotion and demotion games annoying. And they actually responded and said they tend to agree. I feel that moving between divisions shouldn't require this additional layer of ladder anxiety. We intend to remove promotion-demotion games between divisions in the future, keeping those high-pressure matches limited to moving between leagues. We don't have that on the schedule at the moment, so I don't want to promise a timeline for delivery, as always. But to me, this is one of the biggest info drops that they are open to this, they are willing to do this, and that it's actually something that they are going to do at some point. Because I've always felt that promotion and demotion games in between just your division was needlessly expounding or expanding on the time needed for rank play.
Yes.
Especially if you got bad luck and got negative enough points that you had to win 2 games just to get back to your promotion game, which has definitely happened to all of us before. And so I would love to see them move to a system where they get rid of those, and then the promotion demotion is just between your actual leagues, or maybe even your promotion demotion ends up being like a best of 3.
Yeah,
because
like
it's a big deal.
Especially if they bring it to just between the leagues. A best of 3 to make that a big deal is awesome, because then you can actually go into the game and be like, guys, this is my 3rd and my best of 3 to make it into platinum. Let's all pick our best heroes and do the best we can. And then people actually, in my experience, respond fairly well to that kind of thing.
Yeah, you would. I like the best of 3 thing. You'd have to make some other changes though, to where you couldn't immediately drop back down. Into demotion matches, because that would feel really bad. You win 2 of 3 and then you lose your next game and then you're back in demotion matches 2 of 3, because that would also just extend the time trying to climb the ladder. And really, that could be 6 games. That could be adding as many games as you're in between. So maybe giving you a positive 250 points whenever you promote
exactly.
So that way you have to lose at least 2 games or something. Just kind of changing.
I would totally be okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't want to get that bad circle. Demotion, promotion.
That circle would feel worse than just what the current system is.
Sure.
So. The other one, first off, this question really isn't super important, and this is a family-friendly show, but earmuffs, kids, because shout out to Blizzard for answering a question from Shitbird McDickbird. Interesting Reddit name. That was a Reddit name. But another good one here that we've had a lot of discussion on from Lorehand was asking if they had any ideas in mind to make Team League more attractive mode. This is one that they actually gave a surprising amount of information on.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just go ahead and read the whole thing here.
Sure.
From Blizz Cooper says, thanks for the question. We do spend time discussing all of our game modes, identifying what is working well and where we can make improvements. For Team League specifically, we don't have any immediate answers. I can provide you with some of the ideas we've been brainstorming that would end up being significant overhaul to Team League. Bear in mind that all of this is very much still a work in progress and in an early discussion stage. We would love to hear community feedback on any of this, so please let us know what you think or if you have any other ideas. First one, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I can see how this would work. Team League becomes a mode that is only available during specific windows of time for a limited duration. In this version, Team League wouldn't always be available, but we would be creating a moment and celebrating the mode during these windows, encouraging players to play in it. This could mean the mode is only available on weekends, or something rare like specific weeks out of a month block, or a handful of times throughout an entire ladder season. I can see how that would get more people excited about, to get more people into the mode, because hey, I want to play Team League, but it's not here. Okay, it's here this weekend. Let's play it. Would be
also,
really...
it came with huge rewards, ton more EXP for, it already has a lot more EXP, but even more, and chances at specific loot crates that give you specific items and all this stuff. They could
I don't
really...
like it at all.
I don't like it at all.
They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that.
I don't like it at all.
They wouldn't do that because at the very end he talks about how they don't want to try and force people into a thing because of rewards. And how would they do ranking on this? Like how would there be ranking from something that's only available like on the weekend or something like that? It's so kind of weird. Next point, Team League is updated to allow all group sizes, including solo and 4-player parties. Not a huge fan. Combine Team League and Hero League into a single queue. This has some obvious issues. We want to make sure that our dedicated Hero League players still feel like they can have that pure experience. Maybe having multiple ladders based off your group size, specifically a solo queue ladder, would alleviate concerns here. At least then, solo queue players would be ranked only against other solo queue players. But this last point, I like it.
This is it.
Because this is like going back to what it used to be, but a better version of that.
Way back in the day.
So turn Team League into a more structured experience that embraced players forming permanent or semi-permanent teams. Essentially, players would create a team name, have a limited roster of players available, potentially customize something visual to represent their team, which is dope. In this version, teams would likely last an entire season, or this could be combined with something like the first option, where this is your team for a limited window of time. So, yes. If they can bring that back.
Except for the limited window of time thing.
Yes, not that part.
Right.
And also don't make the teams cost gold.
Yeah, because that was kind of weird too. We're seeing in the chat too a little bit of reaction to some of these points. And it is kind of true as you're going through these various bullet points. This last one's the one that sticks out to me. Every other one of them that we've mentioned are all kind of like making me go, I don't know about that. With like, the all group sizes and the specific windows of time and that kind of thing. I'm really not sure on all that stuff. But this last point, if we could stick one thing on this here, Blizz Cooper, that's the point, I would say.
Yeah.
Because we've been asking for this for some time.
Well, and that's
not.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say
We're
that
all too polite.
No, you.
Someone go.
The reason I wanted to read this, which I'm sure a lot of people again have read this Reddit, but this is something that's really important to get feedback on. So if this is the only way you've heard of this answer to this question, and if chat is any significance, then some of these sparked a fire in you that you don't like or don't want to see. So make sure to give some of that feedback. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is not only does that last option sound really good, and is kind of a better version of what we had way back in alpha beta, but at the same time, when you implemented that system, that could also be an extremely good time to implement a legitimate tournament mode inside the client. Because then you would already have all the tech you needed to form these teams inside the game. And we see this tournament mode tech already in StarCraft 2. So all we need to do is adapt that for heroes. You add on this, which allows you to make those permanent or semi-permanent teams. And then now you can run all tournaments from in-game. You could sign up for tournaments in-game. You could form teams in-game, and those teams could then be used for both Team League and the tournaments, both of which would hopefully then draw more people into the queue just in general.
And then it could happen if the tournament modes and everything happened and people started playing Team League and Team League mattered. We could have the HGC farm system built-in client where Team League, like people could actually get into the HGC,
open division,
Crucible matches by playing with their team and getting high ranking and being invited to participate in open league tournaments to qualify.
I feel like I wrote an article about this a while ago.
I feel like we've talked about this probably, I don't know, in our 179 episodes at least 10 times.
Or some version of it, for sure.
It's and that's the thing. Like, as cool as the system sounds, you couldn't just really implement this system if you wanted it to be successful. You need to implement this system, and then something like tournament mode, and then you'd also have to implement, ideally, something that would allow you to find and group up with people of similar skill level from within the client itself. And maybe that's something, and the tournament mode is something that comes a little later as an addition to it, and that's fine as long as they're actually put on the roadmap and they say, hey, look, this is the first implementation of this system. This is where we're going to bring this system. And that's the kind of thing I want to see from them, is kind of a building upon itself and making it that much better. But I think you need, in the end, all those pieces to really make it successful.
Yeah.
And all of that could play in so well with an actual like team finder as well.
Well, yeah, that goes back to social features, which I've seen Critic Kitten in chat's been mentioning. Like, you know, this isn't an easy or quick thing. Like, we still need that structure to make this a doable thing. You know, for people listening to this podcast or following the HGC, we're already involved in communities to where, you know, it's fairly easy for us to find. Well, actually, I take that back. We know a lot of people that play this game. But even me, myself, with my, you know, my schedule, super hard for me now to even find a time to play, let alone find 4 other people to play with. So even for us, it's not always easy to get that team. So, you know, whatever structure we can get in there, whatever that looks like, whether it's the clans that they mentioned, you know, being a potential for a really long time or something else. But
yeah,
it's
sure.
The end goal would be awesome if we could reach that.
Agreed.
I still think this is going to be the social features BlizzCon. I think that's
I really
gonna be the
hope it
selling
is.
point. I believe it in my heart.
I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with it. There's just a few other things that I wanted to point out. One being, and this is super interesting, it seems like they actually said, okay, so Team League, someone asked a question about decay timers, because we have rank decay in now for certain things. They actually said Team League doesn't have a decay timer. Decay timers do not secretly affect players who are in placements. Only when a player has finished all their placement matches are the decay timers initiated. And this is really interesting, and I really don't think I agree with this, because it feels like decay timers should be initiated even when you're not in placements from not having played.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. If
So I thought
long.
that just sounded that just sounded a little weird to me, because if you don't play for a season or two and you're not getting any sort of decay on your ranking, it seems like that kind of is a loophole in the system.
Almost defeats the purpose of there being decay.
Yeah, we've had that discussion before of, you know, Smash Sword coming back into HOTS, who hadn't played in a really long time, and he got placed at the highest you could be placed at the time, which was Diamond 3.
Yeah, because he was rank 1 in the old preseason system.
So, and him coming back and doing that, and that's happened to a couple Zords.
It's very surprising to me that the rank decay implementation wasn't just across the board. So I don't know.
I'll bet there's still not a lot of it. Another good one to ask, I should reach out to Slambo, the other former co-host of the Cavalry podcast, because he got to rank 1 as well and hasn't really played in a long time, that I understand. So I may reach out to him and be like,
plays 10 games. See what
we've played
get those in.
We've played Team League together, not super recently, but not too long ago, and I believe he was high plat or low diamond in Team League.
Oh yeah, okay.
So yeah.
So that just I wanted to mention that, because that just seems super weird that we don't have decay across the entirety of the ranked stuff. Blizz Joe did talk a little bit about what they're thinking will be implemented next season. So he says for season 4, 2018, which will be the next season, we plan to continue examining the quality of matches as well as the end of season impact of rank decay. Our feature development efforts have primarily been focused on hardening the quick matchmaking experience. Please let that come. We need it so bad. We're also deep into development on a loss forgiveness feature, and that's what Gizmo mentioned earlier, that will prevent point/MMR loss for players who are stuck with the lever, while also punishing frequent levers. And then here's the quick list that they're considering for the future. So preventing returning ranked players from placing higher than Diamond 3 each season roll after placements, reducing the number of placement games required for returning ranked players, which would actually be pretty sweet, as it doesn't seem like placements for returning players have a huge impact now that they tightened that up. So less games before you actually could start ranking would be great, in my opinion.
Right.
Separating out the regional GM ladders to allow players to rank up within their local player base and matchmaking rule sets, which is cool. Adding draft spots for Hero League, as we talked about already. Further extending the rank point decay to affect additional leagues, which may somewhat be an answer to what we just talked about earlier. And then creating more incentive for Team League, a topic that they already posted about. So I hope so. It's a lot of, it sounds pretty good. I did not see performance-based matchmaking in there, which makes me a little nervous.
Very concerned, actually,
see?
but yeah.
Can I also say that loss forgiveness is a weird term to me for what it does? Yeah. But then I guess leaver forgiveness kind of does sound weird as well, because it sounds like you're being forgiven for being a leaver. But I think that's a really big thing for me. Like, I haven't been able to play much rank this season, but last season, whenever I was grinding out and I had like 250 games or so, I would say at least 25% of my games, somebody would leave for 5+ minutes, whether that was somebody that just raged and quit, or there were a lot of connection issues, which sometimes they would come back, sometimes they wouldn't. So that would be a pretty big thing. Whatever that looks like, who knows, but it'd be nice.
Agreed. But I think that covers most of the main topics from the ranked AMA. Hot Slogs actually has a really good recap of that. So if you want to read the whole thing in its entirety, you can go check that out for all the details. That'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. We have one more AMA, don't we? Or was that the last one?
I believe there's one, like maybe a balance one.
Yes.
That might have been the last. I think there might be a balance one coming up.
The last one was art. Yeah, so we have a balance one coming up too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. All right. So I hear there may have been some stuff happen in the HGC this last week. I don't know. So let's go ahead and hop on in that. All right, TBK. The little thing called the Western Clash happened this last weekend, and I was very, very wrong about everything I said last week.
You know,
yes, I was
most of us were very, very wrong about the results of Western Clash, and just as an FYI, if you have not seen the Western Clash, have not heard the Western Clash results, or are still watching, be warned, spoilers will abound. So skip ahead.
And before we hop into this actual discussion, I want to bring something up here real quick because, again, I wasn't able to watch the first couple days. I was planning on watching the final day. Have not had a chance to yet. So I plan on going back and watching those VODs. Unfortunately, because I was planning on watching the final day, I saw the spoilers and stuff for the first 2 days just to keep up on it. And then, of course, my phone told me who won because it vibrated, and I looked at it, and it was a mistake.
Dude, that is my whole life, is trying to dodge that kind of stuff. Do you guys ever see me just go totally dark on social media, as I have for the last few days? It's because I'm trying to catch up on HGC, like a major event. And I did. I finished watching the finals at about 8:15 before the show started.
Nice.
So I literally am hot off of learning who the winner was, watching the finals, all that stuff. Because I'm with you, man. Like on weekends, I mean, definitely the Friday during work, there's just no way I could watch that day, and then I've got to kind of catch up from there. So, and I try to watch it in as much of a sequential order as I can, but I had some trouble doing that this time too. So I don't know if you've dug into it. I'm finding it really difficult to just find day 2.
I haven't. Well, I haven't even.
Board.
Yeah, I haven't looked for day 2 yet. But what the point I'm trying to make here is something I was thinking about as I was driving during work today, and that is, esports is kind of trying to mimic, or at least mimic closer, what traditional sports has been doing through these leagues, through like Overwatch League, stuff like that, to make it more interesting. And something that I thought of, because I was like, man, I really wish I could watch this while I like drive, but I drive a commercial vehicle. That is very against the law. Can't do that. So I was thinking, and I need to go back and just experiment with turning on a VOD, but not actually watching it. One of the great things that traditional sports does in like every sport is, you have your television broadcast, but then you also have radio broadcasts. That is a very different type of casting, to where it's painting the visual images in your head without you actually seeing them. And I need to go and see if the HGC casters are doing it enough. Yeah. Well, okay.
It
does vary.
So, depending on the caster you get.
Would then that be a worthwhile step, you guys think, in not just Heroes of the Storm, but in esports as a whole, also having like a podcast radio type cast for these events?
I am not so sure, only because like it partially depends on the esport for sure. Because I watch a lot of Hearthstone as well. Mm-hmm. Hearthstone being the slower paced game that it is, I have found that it's super easy to watch, quote unquote. And by that, I mean, not even watch at all at times, the game, because like you can be doing the dishes or doing the laundry and just have it on. And as long as you can like peek over and see what the board state is like, and as long as you understand like the decks and how they play into each other, all the matchups and everything, you kind of already get an idea of, oh, this player's a little bit ahead, and then tune out visually anyway for a little while, listen to how it goes, and maybe watch like, I don't know, when a player finds lethal and finishes off with a really cool combo or something like that. That one is super easy to digest in just an audio format, because again, you can get almost all of it out of just that and peeking at the screen from time to time. In other games, though, I'm a little more hesitant. And I guess I've always been a little hesitant toward the radio broadcast version of sports as well for similar reasons. But there's just times in which, like, because I mean, I also occasionally try to multitask watching Heroes of the Storm with doing some of those same types of things. Definitely a lot harder to do, because I find myself watching a lot more than I do in Hearthstone or some other things. And so, of course, the laundry gets done a little bit slower in those cases. Don't tell my wife. But anyway, so, and yeah, what I miss, though, if I'm doing something else, is moments that are really frenetic, moments where, like, all of a sudden, this is finally the team fight that's going to decide maybe the entire tournament. And we've seen tournaments go down to the very last team fight in the very final match of a best of 7, and to have that fight described to me audio only, I don't know if it would work for me. And I'm an audio learner. I'm an audio guy all around. I listen to podcasts more than I listen to myself talk sometimes, which is a lot. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't hate the idea, but I just don't know if it would work for me.
And I don't think it would, because like you said, like in some sports fans, there are people that never listen to the radio. They just listen or watch the games. But I think it's also a hard thing to grasp, because it's not really done. Even if the VODs, even if it works like kind of well, it's hard to know until it's really attempted, because, your comparison from like Hearthstone to a MOBA, think in, hopefully there's some sports fans out there where this will kind of make sense, but radio casting of like baseball, very slow game, easier to follow. Sure. And then football is very fast paced, basketball as well. And if it's done right, you can still really build up those exciting moments, those big plays, to where it paints that great picture in your head. And then you can still always go back, and like, oh my gosh, I really want to see that play. There's at that point would probably be a highlight of it somewhere. I'm just wondering, like, I really would love to see it tested somehow, some way, because it's very, very, very different than the visual shoutcasting that we see. So I just wonder if it would be something that would work in esports.
I mean, honestly, I think it could work. I really do, but you're looking at two sides, right? First, you have the weight on the casters to provide an accurate enough play-by-play to where you can almost visualize it in your head, or at the very least hit all the high-level points that are important enough to allow you to understand how the match is going. And then on the flip side of that, you have the burden of listener knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter how good a shoutcaster is, unless you have a certain level of knowledge, you're not going to get much from that. And it's similar to baseball and football and such too. You have to have a certain level of knowledge if you're listening to get enjoyment out of it. And I think for a fast-paced game like a MOBA, that level of knowledge you need is going to be a lot higher than something like baseball.
Yeah.
To get the listening experience. So yeah, I mean, I think it could work. It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
I'll say this too.
It's an interesting point.
I think it would work a little bit better in a MOBA than it would a shooter, for instance, because like if they tried this in Overwatch League, for me personally, the whole reason I watch it is just to see the cool plays, to see how like the Widowmaker was able to spin around and 360, not exactly no scope, because if you no scope on Widowmaker, it's a submachine gun, but you get the idea. Like the cool shots that they pull off, that's what I'm watching Overwatch League for, and there's no way to capture that in audio other than just saying, oh, and he got the perfect shot off on the Winston's head and the Winston died, you know, like it just doesn't. But you could make an argument for MOBAs. It's still tougher than something like Hearthstone, but
for sure. And this may be something that's, 10 plus years down the line, because obviously right now esports is still in the growth phase. So it's hard enough trying to bring in an audience to watch visually while you're trying to capture new people, to where that the audio only would not touch that audience, because again, they would have no idea what people are talking about. But it just got me thinking today of where potentially esports could head as far as, trying to make it easier for people to stay up to date. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It's interesting.
Okay.
Totally with you on the sentiment that I also want to watch while driving, while also not risking everyo's lives in that situation.
Yeah.
Because you spend so much time in the car.
Yeah.
It's just let me do cool stuff. So jumping a little bit into the Western Clash, as we kind of mentioned, it did not go how anyone, I think, thought it would go, with the exception of Team Dignitas.
I was about to say, you could have called the winner.
Yeah, Team Dignitas, if you couldn't guess, did what they do best in taking championships, and not only won the Western Clash, but did not drop a single
game
to win the Western Clash. So honestly, right now, from an NAEU perspective, Dignitas is on a completely different level than the rest of the EU and the NA teams. But not only that, just looking through our bracket was pretty crazy, because Method ended up taking Tempo Storm out in the first round, dropping them to the losers bracket. Leftovers took Heroes Hearth out 2-0. And this is the 4th seed.
Yeah.
They ended up taking them out. And honestly, just throughout the entire thing, Leftovers had a Zealots-like run from the original Western Clash, in that they pretty much exceeded all expectations of what people thought they were going to do.
And
it turned out...
I was just going to say, if I'm Heroes Hearth, I would feel at least okay about that, in the sense that Leftovers did then continue to do super well throughout the rest of the tournament, up until,
Yeah. And if you look at it just from a historical standpoint, most of the teams didn't do worse than they did before. But just from the momentum and such that we saw building up to it, it was definitely a little disappointing that Heroes Hearth didn't make it as far as a lot of people thought they would. And then from Tempo Storm's perspective, we all wanted to root for them, but in a lot of ways, the cards were stacked against them simply because they lost Psalm so recently, and integrating a 5th person into that team and then expecting to go up against the best that NA and EU have to offer is a tough challenge. Like that's pretty rough. And so in some ways, a lot of their results could have been predicted, at least to a point. The big news was, and this is the team that really didn't get any of us excited during the actual weekly phase. Team Freedom went on a tear as far as NA is concerned, actually going all the way to the semifinals.
Remember what I said about them last week?
That they're so boring to watch or something? Yeah.
Well, they heard you.
That's not quite
and they decided
the terms
to turn
I
it
used,
up
but
a
it was
notch.
close. Yeah.
Because they had a phenomenal run. Basically, the NA version of the leftovers from the EU side, some of the series, the best series were ones that involved Team Freedom and leftovers.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for VODs, the Team Freedom leftovers series VODs, I would highly recommend because they're very good. And one of the things I'm going through right now, Moon Prayer of Tempo Storm does these really, really cool infographics on the big tournaments and stuff. I linked it in chat. We'll have the link in the show notes as well. But I wanted to hit on some of the high points and then see if you guys had any other specific things you wanted to cover. First pick only won 42% of games, which is kind of interesting. Kind of another pushback to first pick always wins. The top picks and bans were kind of interesting as well. Deckard Cain, Phoenix, Yrel, Muradin popping back up, and Blaze were the 5 most picked overall. And Medivh, Diablo, Abathur, Maiev, and Genji were the 5 most banned overall.
Hey, you remember what we said about Yrel when she first came out? And
Is she going to see any HGC play?
She did get some buffs, but
she did.
Still
Yes.
Some significant buffs.
Top 5 picked.
Sometimes the community is just wrong.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yep.
It was good seeing her, though. It is super fun watching one played at that level. Just the positioning that they get off and how they're using the knockback and all that. It's a fun hero.
We also did see quite a bit of Raynor, which was really cool. We saw 12 games of Hammer.
I know. There was so much Hammer.
And this
I
is
was thinking that too.
post-nerf of BFG.
Yeah.
It's not damaging buildings anymore.
They were honestly just using her like you'd expect you'd use Hammer, too. Like she just got the job done in some cases.
Yeah, she really did. Win rate wise, these are always kind of interesting. Malfurion still topping the highest win rate with 74%, followed by 67% with Zeratul of only 6 games. Maiev, Uther, and Junkrat, although Uther and Junkrat only had 5 games played each, but both with 60% win rates. And both the Malfurion and the Maiev one are the most impressive because those were a 19 and a 17 game pick rate with a 74% and 65% win rate.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Pros really using Maiev.
And this is Malf after the Ice Block nerf as well, right?
I'm not sure that was the patch for that.
Not sure.
I'd have to go back and check, honestly. I'm not sure the exact patch. It was played on one of the balance patches, I believe. Lowest win rate heroes. Poor Abathur. Maybe falling out of style. Who knows? 7 picks, but only a 29% win rate. Hanzo finally falling off from a competitive side. 8 picks with 38% win rate. And even though Yrel had 27 picks, she ended up with a sub 50% win rate. 41%.
Right.
So really kind of interesting how that ended up going. Overall, it was a really good and a really by the numbers tournament at the same time, because you had the whole Dignitas aspect, and they were just stomping everyone. And that in a lot of ways made for a much more dull finals.
Yeah.
Just because of how big of a stomp Dignitas was just giving to all these teams. But then you did have the secondary runs of Team Freedom and Leftovers that were really interesting and engaging.
Yeah.
And so it's a mixed bag, but overall, at least from a quality standpoint, games wise, but production wise, was fantastic. Casters were great. And I'm really, really hoping we can see some more teams get to Dignitas's level before BlizzCon.
You know, when it comes to stompings like that, though, I'm kind of two minds on this. For one, I knew it was a stomping as soon as I got that far in the VOD, because you can look at the time that you have left on the bar, and it was like, oh, there's a best of 7 series, and it's got an hour and 15 minutes to wrap up. Let me just guess that Dignitas just crushes this. Right, based on like game length versus the casting time in between and all that. Yeah. So anyway, I kind of knew that was going to happen even as I was watching it. But I mean, so yes, I mean it's not as fun to just watch a stomping really in any sport or esport for sure. I guess unless you're just a diehard fan of the team that's doing the stomping. But at the same time, like I'm encouraged by the fact that a team can be this much better than the rest of the competition, because what that tells me is that, you know, for anyone that's out there still thinking, oh, Here's the Storm is a no-skill game where I can't believe they share experience and don't do last hit on creeps and all this stuff.
No store?
No, yeah, you don't even buy stuff? What? You could point to Dignitas very clearly and say, no, I mean, there's a lot of skill in this game. This team is more skilled than anyone in this tournament by a long shot and completely crushed it, didn't even drop a map. So I to me, if I was any of the other teams, that would encourage me to try to get to that level. And it just encourages me about the game itself in that way.
For me personally, like it's okay. Like this stuff is going to happen in sports. You know, you have the Patriots, the Golden State Warriors, the San Francisco Giants. Thank goodness they're not as good anymore. And it's okay that happens. Like this should still, BlizzCon should be super exciting for, you know, Dignitas versus, you know, whoever's top in the Eastern Clash coming up this weekend. But, you know, as long as we don't go through long stints of like Cloud9 was really good for a long time, which was still okay because they're a North American team. But you need that. Oh my gosh.
Gotta have the competition.
What's the cool word for competition? Starts with a P. Parity. You need parity. So you need things to swap up every once in a while, and hopefully, you know, the other teams learn their lesson. They catch up at least a little bit, even if they're not able to overtake. But it's fun, and then it can also be disheartening in a way if it lasts too long. So
Yep. Critic Kitten's backing me up, though. In chat, he did point out this was the patch in which, Ice Block was gone on Malfurion. I kind of picked up on that. There was a game between, I think it was if I'm not mistaken, it was the losers finals between Freedom and Leftovers. Game 1, if I'm not mistaken, where they were playing Cho'Gall and just dragging in the Malfurion and just crushing him every time. Couldn't Ice Block out of it.
And speaking of, we got a Cho'Gall game.
And it was so good.
Always a treat.
Oh, yeah. Cho'Gall,
absolute treat to watch.
Alex Strauss is such a good healer on him. Them, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's true. And one more thing to note, too, before we move on. With the new rules this season, because an EU team won, that will now give EU 3 slots for BlizzCon as opposed to NA's 2. Mm-hmm. And so those 2 NA slots are going to be hotly contested. And at the same time, it's going to give EU a little more breathing room to allow for another team to come in. And so that alone is such a big deal that winning this for your region just enables a whole nother team to come with you and increases your chances that much more. Is a big deal. So hopefully at some point we can beat Dignitas and start getting that 3rd slot.
Yeah, that is a huge deal. Having an entire slot up for grabs for BlizzCon
Yeah.
World
Yep.
Championships.
I can't wait to watch it live.
I know.
Uh,
I'm
but-
just so glad I'm going back this year.
But speaking of things that I probably won't be able to watch live, the Eastern Clash is coming up. And this will be newly erected Paradise City Resort in Korea will host the top 4 Heroes of the Storm teams from both HGC China and Korea in an epic competition with, of course, $100,000 in prize money up for grabs. The teams that have qualified for the Eastern Class are Gen G Esports, Tempest Ballistics, Team Blossom, Super Perfect Team CE, The One, and Beyond the Game. Tetcher, J-How, Kaldor, Dreadnought, G-Clef, and Snitch will be on hand to commentate and analyze the games. So that's super exciting. This will be going on starting the 16th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah, less than a day.
3 a.m. CEST. So yeah, coming up really, really quick. And again, these are definitely not the kind of matches I'll be able to catch all of them live near as easy as when it's in California. But these are certain to be some pretty insane matches, and it'll be interesting to see if Gen G can pull a Dignitas and dominate in such convincing fashion over the rest of the teams there, or if Tempest, Ballistics, or any of the other teams actually step up and really give them a run for their money.
How do you feel about Snitch casting in this event?
I don't think he'll be casting.
Well,
I think he'll be.
How do you feel about
analyzing.
him being part of the commentator crew?
I think it's really good, honestly. Like, we've seen this before in Cawthon, in Glau, in Fan, and all of those player commentaries are always really interesting to me because they understand the game. Not that the commentators are not knowledgeable about the game, but like these players understand the games at a different level, and so they will point things out and talk about things that the commentators might not, or might not pick up on, or maybe actually have an explanation as to why this team did a certain thing. And Snitch is on the dominant team in the Western Hemisphere, so it seems like he will be a good person to provide that knowledge.
So for me, it's a little weird. I don't think I have an issue with it. So yes, we have seen this in the past, but I believe this is the first time, and it's different because he's not playing this weekend, but it's the first time that a player that has qualified for a tournament like this, and we'll just say like with Western and Eastern Clash, commentating. Before, it's been professional players whose team, I don't think there's been a team that has qualified.
Usually ones that didn't make it.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know. It's okay in a sense to me, and it kind of goes along with, we've had coaches and stuff of teams participating also casting, which is weird to me because I feel like you should be like, that's more weird because I feel like you should be with your team throughout that tournament instead of casting. But if you are on Dig, how do you feel about Snitch casting, traveling to not only another time zone that would be closer to him if he was in Europe, but going immediately after already changing the heck out of your time from participating in a tournament a week before, then going to this, then going back, missing practice time, then having to, readjust to your time zone. It's a little weird.
Have some challenges, but I'm sure they've worked it all out. Like, I mean, I don't think Snitch would have signed up for it if he didn't think he could pull it off.
If I were Snitch, I'd want to do this. I'd want to do this so bad
absolutely,
because
you can see it
the
firsthand.
Korean teams, at least from what we've seen, that's going to be their biggest competition for BlizzCon. And so any opportunity he gets to interact to analyze, to watch them closer, I would think would be hugely beneficial for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a fun trip. I mean, this place is called, what was it called again? The Paradise City Resort. Are they going to be playing the games from like beach chairs?
I hope so.
I really hope so too.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Eastern Clash, check it out this weekend. Should be really, really interesting. I'm excited to see what the level of the Korean and Chinese teams look like, especially as these clashes are really, for better or for worse, giving us a BlizzCon preview.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. So we have our hero of the week this week. Feels like it's been a while since we've done one, and I guess it kind of, well, actually we just did Raynor and Asmodan. Did we do Asmodan?
Yeah, but you're talking a new hero of the week. It's true, and it would have been even longer if we hadn't pushed back our last one a bit. So this all just speaks to the slower hero rotation release.
Yeah,
and that's fine. Mm-hmm.
That's true as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into it.
Hero of the week.
All right, for this week's Hero of the Week, it is High Inquisitor Sally Whitemane, better known as Sally, even though it's not her official title. It's her official title in our hearts.
It's her official title. It's her first name. Like, people call me Kevin. I presume people would call her
People
Sally.
call you the Kevin.
That's right. Yeah, I've got
the Kevin
an article there. It's true.
But as we all know, latest support to enter the Nexus seems to be doing surprisingly well. So far, people seem to be enjoying her. And we were talking about this before the show. I found her to be very interesting in the fact that the builds I had seen that were popular and that I had initially been trying out and stuff this last weekend and whenever she first launched last Tuesday, it's changed a lot. And there's always going to be change in the first couple weeks as people figure out new and exciting things. But it seems to have been pretty drastic this time around. And I've seen some really good discussions on different talents. And I know in our Discord, people have had some really interesting debates of why some talents are really good, some talents are really bad, and people just disagreeing. And that's always really cool, and that can happen for, people bringing good points to their cause, I guess, for why they pick certain talents. But we are going to go through a couple here. One of them, I know TBK, the Q build, which seems to be picking up steam.
It seems to kind of be the build of choice right now, honestly. And I do want to make the disclaimer too, from a talent win rate standpoint, from all the information we have, which is of course HOTS logs. A lot of the other talent builds are actually doing pretty well, but the Q build is just doing a little bit better. So this may be a case of the other talents not necessarily being bad, but some of the Q talents just being too good. And so I would not be surprised if we see some balance tweaks to some of these Q talents in the next week or two when we see the next balance patch. But yeah. I like the idea of what they're trying to do, and I feel like there's several different builds that could be pretty interesting, because from a build perspective, the Q build, which we'll go over, is very much a burst healing type build. It's just doing it a little too well right now. Whereas something like your Inquisition, your W, your Clemency type build is more a sustained healing / higher damage type build. And so there's some good, plus some good situational tiers. So there, in theory, is a lot of flexibility in this hero kit and talent tree once they perhaps tune a few more things.
To me, the strength of the Q build isn't so much that each individual talent is super good. I mean, some of them are, and you could pick them anyway. But it's that they just synergize so well. I didn't quite grasp that until I tried the game today with the Q build. But if you go the full route, I mean, you could take something for Q at 1, 4, 7, 13, and 16. And doing so, you have super buffed the Q. Like, again, as you were saying, crazy burst healing that's actually a lot more mana efficient and gives people like shields and all kinds of other stuff. We'll get into it. But yeah, I think if they can kind of like nerf that synergy somehow, maybe in a couple of the picks, we'll just see the rest of the talents bleed in a more diverse talent build that you could pull off. So not that you can't do that now. It's like you said, you end up with a little bit more higher damage, which does do healing. So, I mean, it's not like you're necessarily shirking healing, but I don't know. After I tried the Q build, that's the healing build for me for right now. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. So let's go ahead and hop in. TBK level 1. What are the talents we're looking at here?
Level 1. So for your Q build, you're looking at Martyrdom, just right off the bat. Each stack of Desperation increases Desperate Please healing by 30%. This is the talent. This is the talent that may be pushing her a little bit over the edge right now, just because of how much extra healing that is. And that would be the one, honestly, that I could see getting a slight nerf to 20 or 25% potentially. But it is a huge increase to her Q healing. The other one, if you're looking for more of a damagey type build, or if the enemy team does not have a ton of burst damage and you're looking for more sustained healing that'll allow you to do damage more, Clemency is the one for you, because not only does that give you an extra heal that is no mana cost at all, it also passively reduces Inquisition's cooldown by 3 seconds. And Inquisition has a decently long cooldown time at 14 seconds. So bumping that down to 11 allows you to get your W off more often and allows you to use it as a heal in a pinch.
Yeah. And don't forget, the nice thing about Clemency is that is a heal that doesn't cost any mana.
Right.
Because her Desperate Plea is the only thing that costs mana. And I still like it. Some situations, like I played a game with a Tracer. Clemency was great for her because Tracer doesn't have mana, but she does have fairly low health pool. But Clemency heals her a pretty stupid amount, so that keeps her in lane, keeps her moving around, keeps her doing her job, annoying people, which is great.
And like Inquisition, its range is kind of odd because you can cast it within the circle, but then it seems to leash a little bit further past that. So I mean, it's honestly, apart from the fact that with Clemency and Inquisition, you are standing still and channeling it. As long as you're intelligent about your positioning when you start casting it, then yeah, you can get. I mean, it's just another button with more healing, and as a healer, that's never a bad thing. So yeah, I'm with you, TBK. Martyrdom's super good. Kind of synergizes with the rest of the Q build, as I was mentioning there. But yeah, if that gets nerfed at all, I don't think I'm going back from Clemency. That's going to be the one I pick every time, because it's just, you just have more options, and it's even more active gameplay.
But it also causes you to have to make some decisions later on when we get to some other talents. So
that's true. Yeah,
has a drawback as well. But multi at level 4, what are we looking at?
So level 4, couple options. If you're going the Q build, of course, it's Unwavering Faith. This one reduces Desperate Please mana cost by 30. Upon reaching 3 stacks of Desperation, gain a 250 shield for 5 seconds. So this is kind of what I was getting into, in that as you progress down this build, you are now not costing as much mana to get the Qs off, and then also getting an extra shield there too. Point 2 that we made last week, but should probably make again for people who haven't really tried her out yet. The Q is the only thing that costs mana. The rest of the abilities just kind of do their thing on the cooldown. So this is really the only thing you're managing mana with, and you're cutting the mana cost. So it's actually super good. We do want to call out at least High Inquisitor, because it's also a mana saving effort. In fact, technically all 3 of these on this tier is, but High Inquisitor, casting Inquisition instantly removes all stacks of Desperation and restores 60 mana per stack removed. So it definitely allows you to weave in that ability to have a more sustaining, like for instance, you can get your 2 stacks up and then just cast it and then refresh back down to a really cheap 1 stack Desperate Plea and that kind of thing. Which to me, if you're sustaining in like the early game, which is what you'd be doing at level 4 typically, when you take this talent, you're really wanting to churn through those 1 stack Desperate Pleas, because that it's honestly it's giving you what kind of feels like Malfurion type healing in the early game, at least in the sense that like it's always up. You can get a little burst of healing in and still be mana efficient and et cetera, et cetera. So,
well,
yeah.
And even more than mana efficient, because Unwavering Faith actually makes your first heal free, completely free. And so it's very easy to throw a heal on for like a top off scenario. You just got out of a fight, or you're just getting ready for an objective and you need to top people off. You throw the Q on with Unwavering Faith, 0 mana. You let the stack of Desperation fall off. You throw another Q on, 0 mana. Let that fall off. It doesn't take that long. And you can get people up fairly quickly without burning any mana whatsoever. This is the other talent that I think has the potential to get hit. And a lot of it has to do with that shield you get at the end, because as they talked about on the Hero Spotlight video, one of her weaknesses is dive. And it definitely is a weakness, no question. But this talent mitigates that quite a bit, because that not only if you spammed Q on yourself while you're trying to get away or when someone dives you, are you getting much bigger heals with this 1 and 4 talent, but you're also getting that shield as soon as you hit that 3rd burst, which does make her decently survivable. So look for that to also potentially be a spot they may hit the shield, potentially the shield value as that goes.
I could see that.
What is so as far as the shield is concerned here? What are the stipulations for you getting a shield again? Like if you cast Q on yourself while you're already at 3 stacks again, do you get another shield for 250? Or
no, you'll have to hit 3 stacks again.
Okay, so it does have to reset.
Upon
fall
reaching
off.
3.
Yeah.
But I mean that happens frequently enough, and now that you've got also the mana cost reduction, it's surprising to me too, and it took me a few games to really catch on to this. You can be somewhat mana efficient even stacking up to 3. Like, it's not great. You're starting to dip down, but I mean, in a pinch, you can get that tracer up with 3 Qs fairly quickly. Get the shield on yourself, do all that kind of stuff. You just don't want to go completely nuts, because you can, and they let you, and your mana bar just drops.
Yeah.
It's not to say there's not situations in which that's not the right call either. I mean, if that tracer had to live in that exact moment for you to win that team fight and thus the game, then yeah, sure, dump your whole mana bar. But it's all, and this all plays into her high skill cap, honestly.
Yeah, but I like the fact that it essentially makes her laning phases cost absolutely no mana, as long as you're paying attention and letting your desperation fall off before healing again, unless of course they need the immediate healing. But it's very interesting. Level 7 here. If you are going the all in on the Q, we have Zealous Spirit, which upon reaching 2 stacks of desperation, Whitemane gains Zeal. So she will automatically get a stack of her trait, or get her trait applied to herself, meaning that the damage you're doing, healing yourself, you're not having to waste a Q on you to get that. But the other 2 talents here are pretty good as well. The most popular one we have is the Fanatical Power, which is a cooldown, 30 seconds. Activate to gain 50% spell power and lose 25 armor for 5 seconds. I know you were a big fan of that one when we were first talking about it, Multi.
Still am. Yeah, I mean, it's risky business, but again, you're really watching your positioning on her anyway. So what I want to do is go back. I feel like 7 is a talent tier in which I could potentially drop that Zealous Spirit for that. I want to try now the full Q build plus that, and just see how big the burst healing gets after that, because it's got to be
Well,
just crazy.
It's true, right? So Zealous Spirit is something you should take if you're not good at healing yourself.
That too,
If you're
yeah.
one of those healers, and I see this in WoW all the time, where they're really good at healing other people, but they're not so good at watching their own health because they're so focused on everybody else's health. So that can kind of mitigate things quite a bit. And Zealous Spirit can actually even be good with clemency, because you're going to be throwing a few Qs off, but at the same time, you're also going to be doing a lot of damage, and damage equals healing for anybody with zeal. And so that's something to think about. Fanatical Power, on the other hand, that you want to talk about burst healing, 50% spell power. I mean, spell power affects healing. And so not only are you doing 50% more damage, you're doing more healing at the same time, either with your Q or with your damage. So that's pretty crazy. So it just requires a little more restraint to actually pop that when the situation is relevant, and know that as soon as you pop that, a team that's actually paying attention, and there's probably going to be a lot of games you're able to get away with it because people aren't paying attention, but 5 seconds is a really long time of negative 25 armor, especially for someone that has the health pool she has. So you have to be super careful.
And no escapes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. But then also, don't forget, level 7 is the tier where she does have Intercession, which is the 60-second cooldown, activatable to make an ally unstoppable for 1 second and gain 1 stack of Desperation. So, fairly situational there, depending on what type of player you are, where your current skill level is. Like, for me, I will probably get to the point where I'm taking Fanatical Power. But as somebody who doesn't main support, when I play support, I'm one of those people that doesn't really pay attention to my own health. I'm really bad at it on Malfurion. Real bad. So Zealous Spirit could be something that helps me out while I learn that. 10 TBK.
10, I like to call this one situational. I do lean a little towards Scarlet Aegis, which bolsters the spirit of nearby allied heroes, healing them for 250 and granting them 40 armor for 4 seconds. I mean, heal plus almost 50% damage reduction. It's definitely a no-brainer. Like, you can pick that and not go wrong. You have to be really careful, though, because it is cast from you, and the radius for it is not massive. And so a lot of times you will have to put yourself in harm's way if you're trying to get it off during a team fight. It can actually be something that's a really good initiation thing, that I've been starting to use it more for teams where I'm got a little more coordination or I'm on comms with, because we can pop that right before the team fight goes down. It'll heal up the last bit of any healing someone might need before the team fight, and B, you're all jumping into the team fight with 40 armor for 4 seconds. And that's a decent enough time that can actually mitigate a lot of the initial barrage of damage the enemy team might be bringing forward. But again, it can be a little situational depending on the team you have. If you have a lot of ranged heroes, it's a little easier to get off because that's where you're going to be too. If you've got a lot of melee, you're going to have to put yourself in more danger to actually get that off on them.
We've seen those kinds of heroics before, though. I mean, it's got some similarities to like Malfurion's Twilight Dream, in the sense that you had to kind of risk a little bit and step up to get that off in the proper times too. So, and even then, you'd have to be in range of the enemy team, not just yours. So,
a silent is a lot different than just.
Oh, I know. Getting some armor. And
yeah, that's definitely a different deal.
You're still sticking your neck out, though.
Yeah.
And then the other one, Divine Reckoning. And I should mention too, there's a big cooldown difference. We're talking 60 seconds on Aegis versus now 100 seconds on Divine Reckoning. The big deal with Divine Reckoning is you can actually target it, and make it a much more ranged thing. It's a decent sized area. It does damage. This can be decent if you can pair it with lockdown from the enemy team, or from your team on the enemy team, and then make sure you have your zeal thrown out before this goes down, and you can heal up several people for a decent amount of healing. Again, it's situational. I don't take it near as much. I would pair it with a mosh pit, potentially pair it with an entomb, can be good, but Scarlet Aegis is been my go-to, and it's one of those things we talked about before. If they're both decent, you look to the cooldowns, and there's a 40-second cooldown difference on these, and that definitely swings me towards Scarlet Aegis a lot more.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, Fanatical Power also stacking with Divine Reckoning as well for that damage plus healing.
Also true.
The thing I like about these, and again, it's been 1 week. People are still feeling her out. It's going to change. And these aren't official stats, but like the Hero's Hearth, the percentage breakdown between these two ults, 58.3% and 41.7%. That's pretty close for some ults.
Pretty close,
which is nice. Yeah. Good to see.
To me, though, Divine Reckoning, for me, it's just not a big enough radius. I don't know. Like, I felt like I had some games where, and I was using it at the wrong time. I didn't have a comp that would benefit from things like Mosh Pit and some of those things you were mentioning. But in my game, they just kind of stepped out of it. So I was kind of like, oh, cool. I mean, it's good zone control. That's never a bad thing, but I don't know. It would have to depend. So to me, like, that one's more situational and on a bigger cooldown than Scarlet Aegis, where you could always get some kind of value out of it.
It is. But I mean, you know, just because Divine Reckoning can be targeted away, like you can target that on yourself too for heavy melee comps, dive comps to be doing the damage, getting the healing, which, you know, you don't necessarily want to stack Fanatical Power with that if they're diving in on you, because then you don't have that armor. But, you know, different situations call for different things. I like it. But multi, level 13, what are we looking at?
Okay, so 13, we're gonna, if you keep with the Q build, it's Self-Righteous for sure. That's that casting Desperate Plea on an ally heals Whitemane, or sorry, I misread that. Casting Desperate Plea on an ally heals Sally for 125, but this does not grant Zeal. So, but yeah, I mean, again, this is just free healing, padding your healing numbers. You've been going the Q build the whole time anyway, so you're all about this. You've got the reduced mana cost and everything. It's not a bad call for sure. But then we did want to shout out another one. So it's the Harsh Discipline though. And this one is the one that's a little bit tough to land. But basically how it goes is hitting a hero with Searing Lash while they're being targeted by Inquisition roots, or by Inquisition, roots them for 1.5 seconds. So it's a root. It's not quite the Malfurion level of rooting in that you don't just put out a big pile of, you know, twigs on the ground, I guess it is, and root everyone in that area. But so basically, and again, they have to be targeted by Inquisition when the lash goes off. So essentially, you have to like either precast the lash or have the second splash of it hit while you're doing the W, essentially. And just in that sense, it's a little tougher to pull off. But if you can land it, I mean, 1.5 seconds is significant. And I've got to think that when the pros get their hands on her, this is likely going to be their go-to, because they'll be able to land this a lot more than I am. And it's the highest favorited rate here on Heroes Hearth 2. It's at 79.2% versus 16.7% on that Self-Righteous. And then a glorious 4.2% of people doing the Guiding Light. So, I don't know. It's an interesting tier, though, across the board. I mean, that Harsh Discipline itself is not like we've seen other talents, I think, in that, you know, it's a high skill cap thing they have to pull off, and it can do an entirely different form of CC if you pull it off.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, Self-Righteous, like, you know, if you're going all in on Q build, sure, but with the other things that you have, you know, Unwavering Faith and Martyrdom and stuff stacking, the 125 heal on yourself doesn't seem like it's that much, to where CC is always good. And in all honesty, the Harsh Discipline it's not the easiest CC to land, you know, because obviously there's just some that are skill shots, there's some that are point and click, towards this one is a skill shot, but also them having to not avoid the secondary part of that. But it's not as hard as I initially thought it would be. And it's also a ton better whenever you don't go clemency. This is one of those things to where if you went clemency at 1, after you get 13, you're trying to balance out, topping people off between saving this to secure a kill. Excuse me, even though that does put Inquisition on a shorter cooldown with clemency. If you don't go clemency, if you're going Q build with martyrdom, it's, no worries. Try and land this combo as much as possible, which is nice. And it does secure kills because, again, 1.5 seconds, it's nothing to shake a stick at.
That's pretty long in Heroes time, for sure. Yeah. One interesting thing, too, is if you can wait, Self-Righteous actually kind of replaces the need for Zealous Spirit at 7, because Zealous Spirit at 7 is the thing that gives you... allows Whitemane to get Zeal on herself when you reach 2 stacks of Desperation. And of course, as we know, Fanatical Power, as long as you're running it right, is extremely strong in that 7 tier. So at 13, you're getting healed whenever you cast a Q on somebody. Boom, there's your self-healing.
And that would scale with Fanatical Power as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you don't need the root or you're not comfortable landing the root, that can be a viable alternative and just allow you to take a little bit of the focus off yourself just from a healing perspective and just allow your cues on other people to slowly fill you back up. Harsh Discipline, if you really are wanting to get good at it, take it into try mode. It actually is super helpful for learning just kind of the nuance of how to land it. And I do want to shout out Guiding Light too. I don't take it often, but when I do, it has been incredible. And this is the one whenever you throw Zeal on somebody, other than Whitemane, it grants them 20% movement speed for 2 seconds. Like, this has been invaluable in certain comps for helping either people escape or for helping chase down other fleeing enemy team members. Like I said, it's not something you're going to pick super often, but in the right situations, it can be very strong. As movement speed, I feel like is, I mean, damage. Everyone loves the damage, but movement speed, I feel like, can be underestimated in a lot of situations and can be very strong.
Yeah,
and not by me. I mean, I'm a Brightwing player on occasion, and Pixie Dust movement speed can be super useful.
I mean, I'll back you up on that. Like, even though it's, low pick percentage wise, the movement speed, especially if you didn't get the unstoppable, and at this point, if you're going Q build, you have a lot of burst healing. Just getting somebody the heck out of dodge, as long as they understand they need to get the heck out of dodge instead of here's some healing, let me turn back around and finish that off. Or they can chase somebody down as well, if the situation arises. But TBK, let's move on to level 16.
So level 16 is pretty amazing. And again, Q build Radiance. Upon reaching 3 stacks of Desperation, all allies with Zeal are healed for 200. So you could potentially hit this on 3 different people. Or maybe even more. If you've got someone with Zeal already, you can. I've found you can reliably keep Zeal up on 2 people. You can get it up on 3, but it'd be very hard to maintain it on 3. But this is just a nice boost of healing, especially if you are going into a team fight. You're using your Q a lot anyways. This is just extra healing on top of all your healing. It's Q build. If you're going the more clemency type route, a little more W, shared punishment can actually be really cool because upon casting Inquisition, you can chain to an enemy hero near the target, dealing 35 damage every half second. And this one is, some people may not know, this can actually chain with Harsh Discipline and allow you to root 2 people, because the extra chain of shared punishment does trigger the harsh discipline if the Searing Lash ends up hitting 2 people.
Yeah.
And that are close together. So that is just a little known fact for shared punishment, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
I like it.
Indeed. It's actually, I have not tried a shared punishment yet, but I can see how it would be good.
I've tried it. It's even on its own, even if you don't get the harsh discipline off or anything, it's good. I mean, extra slows. You can seriously like slow people from getting kills with just a basic Inquisition, or you can like slow them down and secure kills for your team. I mean, it's a good ability, and the laughing during it is the best. We've seen a couple of people in chat chime in just about her laughs the whole time.
Her laugh is ridiculous, and it cracks me up every time.
My favorite one by far is the one where she's just going like, like I don't know why, it just kills me. Anyway,
all right. Level 20 multi.
20, we're actually kind of leaving up and pretty open here, because as you look at the pick rates on Heroes Hearth, they're very, very much even across the board for the most part. For instance, so we've got Scarlet Crusade, Judgment Day, Subjugation, and Purge the Wicked. Percentages here, at least presently, are 37.5, and then 3 sets of 20.8% for the other 3. So people are experimenting with all of them at this point, and we agree. I think it depends on the game, depends on what's happening, and if there's a need for some of these specific things, by level 20, you're going to kind of know what's up. So let's cover at least a little bit. So the first 2, of course, are the ones that actually, buff the heroics, and in their own right, both are pretty good. So we've got Scarlet Crusade is where the Aegis heals for 50% more, so free healing would scale with everything that we've done, such as Fanatical Power, and makes affected allies unstoppable for 1 second, which could be a game changer in a level 20 team fight. We've got Judgment Day, Divine Reckoning, which is the, where you put the stuff on the ground and stuff happens. That's really specific, isn't it? Anyway, deals 50% more damage and pulls enemies to its center the first time it hits them. So you're getting a little bit of that Gazlo Gravo bomb. You're getting some the blanking on the name of it,
S
but
of Johann.
Graviton Surge.
S of Johann. No, it's not quite S of Johann. It's a bigger suck than that. Yeah, Graviton Surge is what I was looking for. Zarya's.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because it really drags them in and sets up wombos and all that kind of stuff. So can't go wrong there. And again, you get more healing off of the more damage, and now that you've sucked them into the center of the circle, it takes them longer to get out, and it's pretty good, honestly. And then the other 2 that are not heroic tied, Subjugation, Inquisition reduces all damage to the target, deals by 75%. So this is kind of like your level 20, almost like Shrink Ray, more in its damage reduction. And actually it has a lot of similarities to Shrink Ray, because you are also slowing them with your
But on a
Inquisition.
14 or 11 second cooldown.
Indeed. So really good. Definitely pick that one if there's just that one guy on the enemy team that's doing a huge chunk of the damage. And especially if there's someone that's close enough to, like I'm thinking, a Star Illidan player just dashes in, is ripping people's heads off. Just start channeling that on him, and he will not do that anymore. Purge the Wicked is the last one, though. This is the 40-second cooldown, activatable, where you blast an enemy hero with Holy Fire, reducing their armor by 25, and dealing 300 damage over 4 seconds. So, again, you could scale some more healing off of that damage, which isn't the biggest deal. The biggest deal is that you've brought down their armor by 25, and your team can turn around and burst them. So,
Yep, that's your kill target.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of cool, because in an uncoordinated team, in a way, you're marking which one is the kill target. Especially if you shout it out ahead of time. You could say, like, hey, I'm taking Purge the Wicked, so whoever I blast with Holy Fire, just go for them.
Fair enough.
It's kind of a trick you learn if you play, again, Brightwing enough to, mention to people, hey, I'm taking the talent that reduces the critter's armor and that kind of thing. So, But yeah. It's a good talent here. I love that there's choices. I feel like, honestly, based on the game, I would feel comfortably picking any of these.
Yeah, I agree. I think
And
this
that's
is
what
a
you
really
want out of a
strong
20
tier.
I think it's one of the strongest 20 talent tiers we've seen. And I think the numbers here, the split between them kind of shows that too.
Yeah. It is a pretty close. But yes, so those are the build ish that we went through with the queue there. And then, of course, the situational talents. Any last minute tips or anything, guys? I guess my quick one, because again, I'm not a support player, but she's still new. Don't be afraid to experiment with her. You do have those queue talents to go if you do need help to start out with as far as keeping yourself alive. But then you do have the harder skill cap stuff to give yourself more utility as well. And we still, again, may potentially see some nerfs to the Q stuff happening. So it's always good to just experiment and get used to other talents in case that happens as well. TPK?
I think I mentioned most of the stuff just during her build. She's a lot of fun. I love supports that do damage too. And so she just fits my play style really, really well. And she's got a lot of really good talents. A really well-made kit, honestly. I don't think I could have asked for too much more in a support. It'll be interesting to see, like we said, what the balance patch ends up looking like and what specifically gets hit. But hopefully it's not super heavy-handed. I think last I looked, she was sitting at a 52 or 53% win rate. So pretty decent, probably one of the best heroes at win rate wise in a long time to come out. Yeah, in terms of win rate to come out. But I think if they do a few things, she'll be in a pretty good spot.
Cool. Multi?
My tip is to care more about her trait Zeal than you initially think that you should. First few games that I played on her, I tried to manage it, but really it was more about getting the cues off. And I would focus on like perhaps putting Zeal on a target, doing some of my damaging abilities to help with the healing, but not really spreading it out as much. I think that a lot of the skills that Malfurion players have will translate well into Sally here, because you can do some of the same things of like, in a way, if you've applied your Q onto multiple targets, you have sort of put a hot on them, at least in the sense that they're going to get some extra healing out of the damage you do, which is also true for Malf these days. You get more healing out of his Moonfires in the same situation. So if you kind of put yourself in the Malfurion mindset as you're doing this, you could spread the Zeal around a little bit, especially in like the early and mid game where you're just kind of sustaining and getting a lot more out of just general trait healing. It's not a ton, but it makes a difference, especially over like the course of the laning phases when you're trying to go for sustain in the first place. To add on to that tip too, so kind of like how I play Malfurion, if you have people dip even just a bit, like we're talking they're at 80% health, 75% health, something like that. Also, if you get to like 75% health, if you have the mana and it's not a panic situation, just go ahead and throw one on yourself, even if you're at like 2 stacks or so, because you could be getting your lashes off. You could be inquisiting someone. Inquisiting someone? I don't know. Inquisitioning? I don't think... Can that even be... Anyway, my point is...
Being inquisitized? I don't know.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. My point is that if you don't have that rolling on yourself at that time, you're just potentially missing out on a little bit extra healing. And maybe it's not a giant deal, but over the course of an entire laning phase, if it affects like when you have to go back for your fountain or back to the Hall of Storms, it can be a big deal. So just think about it. Maybe more than you thought you might need to.
Fair enough. The last thing I would say on her, not a tip, but just overall, I love the design of this hero, from the art team, the animation team, the sound team, the hero.
You just like that
team.
She doesn't have pants.
Pantless Sally, old pantless Sally.
That's right.
No, but I wasn't one of those people that whenever they were doing the teasers was worried it was going to be her instead of Anduin, which now we know there's still plenty of room for Anduin to come in here. Sure. But she's a very cool, memorable character from the World of Warcraft universe. I think they did a really good job with her. So I can dig it.
Yeah, when they come out with Anduin someday, just a quick side note, I wonder like how they're going to capture his fantasy. Like, would they make his abilities actually make him fall into traps and make like stupid leadership decisions and all that kind of stuff? Like, can they be built into his trait somehow or something?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Which, by the way, I finished Before the Storm yesterday. Such a touching book. It's so sad. Sylvanas is a jerk. By the way, thanks to Lord Slush, the title of this episode is Inquisisationating.
Inquisitionating.
Inquisitisationating.
That's it. Good thing
it.
I don't
Say
have
that
to read
5
it
times
again.
fast.
I just have to type it.
Yeah, well, the people who listen to the audio will see that as the title, and
Inquisitisationating.
thus Inquisitisationating.
It's a good word. It's not a real word, but it's a good one.
No, that's a real word now. Every word was made up at some point, okay? And now is the time for this one.
It's true. All right, let's move on. TBK, what do you have for community content this week?
2 things. First off, this amazing Robot Arthas skin. And this is done by Joseph Kim, who I've highlighted some of his skins in the past. This is very much a Xenotech-ish style Arthas.
Oh, yeah.
And I love it so much. Especially the Cyber Syndergosa, which looks amazing.
I like that, and I like so the death coil even has like just these digitized kind of squares, like pixels coming off of it too. It's so cool. I'm sold. And the color scheme on this is just sick.
It's amazing.
Yeah, never mind. I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. I was gonna make a comparison to something else, which it's just not needed because it is cool.
Nope. It's absolutely amazing, and I would buy it in a heartbeat. Blizzard, give me all the robot skins, please.
Oh yeah.
Second, speaking of Whitemane, it seems like perfect timing that my interview with lead hero designer Matt Villers, who also happened to be the hero designer who designed Whitemane, went live today. And so if you're interested in finding out a little more about Whitemane, as well as finding out a little bit more about just support talk in general, then head on over to Heroes Hearth and check that out. We'll have the link, of course, to both these things in the show notes. I wanted to hit up just kind of a few things, and I don't want to spoil the whole interview. But my first question was, where are Mass Sleep, Resurrect, and Rise My Champion? Because these are right. Like the initial things that, like, where those are heroics, right? And he actually goes super in depth on some of the stuff they tried and some of the reasons those actually aren't in game. So I thought that was really interesting. He also talks a little bit about their philosophy on cleanse. He talks a little bit about them having a lot of design room still for other types of priests, aka Anduin, Shadow Priests, Holy Priests, whatever, and that the discipline priest model is, at least in part, what they were going for her in general. And then finally, we talked about this the other week when we talked about Chromie and Stukov having quest talents removed, specifically Stukov. And so I actually got to ask him a little bit about what their philosophy was on questing talents now. And I wanted to kind of read that response because it was really interesting going forward, what they'll be doing. And he says, when we first started doing quests, we got super excited for the possibilities. And there was this period where everybody had to have a quest.
Right.
Looking back, after about 2 years of quest talents, we realized in hindsight that while quests can be super fun and add a lot to the game, there have also been a few cases where we made something a quest just for the sake of having one. As we revisit Heroes for Reworks, we're taking a very critical eye to questions like, does this talent really need to be a quest, or are we just giving you busy work that's gating a fun mechanic? In some cases even, is this actually detrimental to how the hero plays? At this point, our focus is on quality over quantity. We want to give We want the quests we do have in the game to reward skill and alter gameplay in ways that feel meaningful and healthy. And if that means going back and cutting quests in some cases, we're okay with doing that. For Whitemane in particular, it felt like she had plenty of goals to focus on already without the added layer of trying to complete a quest. So we didn't think it was necessary to add any. In the future, you'll see other heroes who do have quests, as well as heroes that don't, depending on what feels right.
So
That's a good approach to me.
it is. It's very interesting, and the quest talent that sticks out to me, that is just, it is my least favorite quest talent in the entire game, and that is Echo of Elements on Thrall, where you're trying to get the last hit on minions who have been hit by chain lightning within like a second or second and a half, because that quest, it's not, the task itself is not hard, but it's super frustrating because you can't really control what minions the chain lightning is going to, and there's so many things that can happen, such as teammates messing that quest up on you. But at the same time, you don't want to just give what that quest rewards are. It's a 2-layered quest to you at the beginning. So I've been thinking, like, I don't know if this would work in Heroes of the Storm, but like a time-gated thing. It's maybe where instead of a quest to complete something, putting that gating the fun mechanic, maybe like you pick the quest, it does something to adjust the ability or enhance the ability, and then say, like, I don't know, 5 minutes after you pick that talent, it gets the second, like whenever the average quest was completed or whatever. If something like that would work in Heroes. Or maybe
Stages up throughout the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe not even
could be a
a
fun idea.
time-gated thing, maybe a level-gated thing. To where it's weird because in Heroes, you are leveling up together as a team.
Like an evolving talent.
Yeah, it's an evolving thing.
Which could work, I think, but you would have to be very clear as to when those power periods happened to give a reminder, because I don't want to pick a talent at level 7 and then have to go back and try to remember what that level 13 upgrade I just got does in the middle of stuff.
Yeah, but
it's
it's the same with, Echo of Elements, for instance. You pick that, and the first thing is, I think it's like after hitting 15 or 20, you get the second, it costs less mana, and then after 30, you get the second charge, which you don't get the second charge until probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes until after you get that. So you still have to remember what the second thing for that is.
Really, any quest kind of has a little bit of that effect as you're learning the hero. You sometimes, when they're totally new, you can finish a quest and be like, okay, now what does this actually do for this ability again?
Yes, I finished it. I'm more powerful.
Something I shined.
I know it does
shone
something.
gold, and I look cool, and the whole team knows that I did something cool, but I don't know what it was.
People shall fear me now.
That's right.
But yeah, anyways, it is a really good article, and I do love the whole conversation you guys had about the, Arise My Champion and the different ways that he tried that. So definitely worth a read. Check it out, people. Check it out. Emails this week. We do have one.
We do.
Sorry, your storage is full. Popped up on my iPad. I had to delay while I hit OK, so I could hit the thing. Multi,
Happens.
we got one from Stemmed Sheep. Zord.
We did, and I'm so glad that this timing works out pretty well, because I think the person in question may be in the chat still. So the Stim Sheep Zord writes, so I was playing a game on Monday night on Towers, and I saw Critic Kitten playing as Dahaka on the other side. Please tell him sorry his team failed him when they were up 24-1, and we came back with the win. I give him my empathy, as I have been in a similar situation. Signed, Stim Sheep Zord.
Feels bad, man. If you haven't been...
What a great email.
It was really good.
If you haven't been in a Towers of Doom game like that on both sides up to this point, you haven't lived. You have not.
Agreed.
You have not felt the full range of emotions that a human being can feel.
And I mean, this email also proves another point, that there's a map where you should just never give up. I mean, I'm of the camp
Oh,
where I don't think
totally.
you should ever give up anyway, but you totally can, like,
Well,
just come back in this
it's-
map.
I think it's probably the map that I personally have seen the most comebacks on, because it's one where it's just a mental thing to where when you have like one more tower shot that you need to get to win the game, and you just think it's in the bag, and you start doing
Right.
stupid stuff. Your
Yep.
team starts splitting up. You're like,
Yep.
oh, I can do this. I don't need to be at that team fight. We're up 2 levels. I can go take this fort or whatever. And it's just, it happens all the time. It really does. So,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons this is Towers of Doom is probably my favorite map to watch played competitively.
Oh, yeah,
Because
for sure.
Crazy crap can happen
The-
and does happen on that map.
Swings like this, and yeah, sometimes as extreme as this, can happen at the pro level, which is just awesome to watch. Because some of it's not even just mental, some of it's actually physical within the map. Because if you just take enough keeps and everything that you need to be able to stack up enough shots, or if you take all of them and start getting the free shots off, I mean, you can actually box out the enemy team,
for sure.
even if you were behind from before.
For sure.
I love that map.
Critic Kitten, by the way, in the chat responds with a frowny face, and then why did you have to conjure memories of that game? So that's for you, Stim Cheapsword. When you listen to this, that's his response.
Don't worry, critic. It won't be the last time, I'm sure. Like that. I feel like it's this map and Braxis Holdout for some reason are the 2 maps that stick out to me is like my biggest comebacks and my biggest throws as well. Maybe not Braxis so much since the changes, which, by the way, I know I've said this before, but those changes are really good to that map.
Agreed.
Yep.
Any last stuff, guys, before we get out of here? Before I die?
Collapse. Yeah. No, I'm good.
I finally
I think it was a good show.
the coughing
probably let
fit
you
has,
rest.
has gone down a little bit, and I don't know why. It's going to come back, though. Before we get out of here, Multi, though, why don't you go ahead and let people know where we can be reached?
Well, we can be found on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon at Lords of the Storm. And shout out to the Patreon in particular. Thanks to everyone who has given in the past, considered giving, or is currently doing so. We just appreciate all of you guys. Can't say it enough each week. Don't want to just gloss over it like I tend to do some weeks. Genuinely, thank you guys for sure. So yeah, otherwise you can find us in game though by typing /join space LOTS, or you can join our Discord, which is also at the top of our Twitter, but it's also on bit.ly/lots Discord. Join us with some discussions, and it's another place to hit us and other people up for games. You can email us with feedback or questions, or maybe just shout out other people in their games, I guess. Lords of the Storm at outlook.com. And if you want to help out the show and can't do so monetarily, we definitely understand. But if you could take the time to leave a review, even if this is your first time tuning in to us or anything, just pop on over to iTunes is a big deal, but really any of the outlets. And, a 5-star review is definitely helpful. It actually helps bring us more earlobes to listen to us.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you don't listen through the lobe, though, do you? Or do you? Isn't the lobe the
drum?
I don't know. Yeah, the drum is
The drum.
and those 3 weird bones in there, right? Like the
I
The
hammer and
resonate. The resonate.
pistol
and
or
the-
something.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah.
Science.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, please leave us a review and not based on my description of the inner ear.
Excellent. You can also find us individually, myself on Twitter at Gizmozord. You can find my Twitch channel, which is also Gizmozord. It's a very lonely place right now.
And
I'm
I
pretty
laugh
sad about
in
it.
the most sympathetic way.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sad about it because I put a lot of work into it, and then, thankfully I have a great job now, but they're working my butt off, and I don't really have time to stream. I plan on getting back into it. Sundays will be my day because it's the only day off I have. But
Nice.
as I still adjust, I'm not pushing myself into doing that because I need my rest. You You can also find me on Convert Trade Presents the BattleNet News. I'm not on this week because it is going on tonight. It's probably over by now. But that, of course, is the World of Warcraft podcast that also features everything Blizzard. It's always a good time with Pat and the crew. Multi, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Multizord. Also, I do have a Twitch channel as well, but it's even less used than yours, Gizmo. I've never used it. So yeah, don't find that. I'm busy as well, especially with the kid. Anyway, I'm also on another show called Hearth Casual, which is a show about Hearthstone, and it's with Brian Black, or Ro, from Realm Maintenance. And this week we're just taking off entirely. Brian's not even doing the Brawl breakdown because it's the Brawliseum, so it's not really one that we can break down in similar ways as we do other, tavern brawls. And I mean, give the guy a break. He does a WoW podcast, and a new expansion just came out, so I'm guessing he's playing the new expansion anyway.
He does a lot of things.
He does do many a thing. But yeah, and next week though we should be back. If not, then the one after. It kind of comes down to some scheduling things there. We'll let you guys know. But either way, Boomsday's still going strong.
Absolutely. And TBK, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at TBKZord, Twitch TBKZord, and of course all over on Heroes Hearth, where you can find my articles, my map concepts, my interviews, all that fun stuff.
Excellent. I feel like I've coughed so much tonight, my voice lowered an octave like in the last 5 minutes, which is really a shame because now I feel like I have a better radio voice. In the show's
I was about to say it's an improvement.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. I have an awful radio voice. I have a really high pitched voice, so
No,
I guess we should
now.
just start the show over again. No,
I think
we're
so.
not.
Well, and Thorn and Thist from Lagging Balls just joined us in chat, so we should just restart the whole
Party,
they
party
were
starting.
they were on Convert to Raid tonight. I hope you all had a good show. But we're going to close this show, and to do that, I do this. And then I say things like, we want to give a special thanks to our patron producer, Oro Borosword, for helping support the show, as well as to Blizzard for featuring us on the launcher tonight. We always do appreciate it when they do that. Wicked Kitten for keeping things clean in chat. And so all the new people joining us from the launcher, hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you all same time, same place next week, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central. Have a good one, everyone.
Enough. I shall do no more.
That does this go with my voice now?
Okay.
It's still on my soundboard.
Of course it is.
I don't know why you would take it off. Yeah. Of your soundboard.
You got to have it for next February.
Or anytime.
That
Or
is
anytime.
that one sound bite is the greatest gift Pat has ever given me.
That was from
So he
Pat?
gave you that one?
Well, yeah, because whenever he was going to be out of town for a couple weeks, and then the California fires happened, whenever I was going to, excuse me, produce Convert to Raid, I got all like the sound bits and stuff, and I totally stole it from him.
I feel like Pat has this entire like hidden personality that no one knows about.
He really does. So one of the things they've been doing lately on Convert to Raid is they've been doing some time walking where he plays some of, because he used to make a lot of
I've heard
bits
that.
for Convert to Raid, him and Coltrane. And they're really good. He made this new one called, what is it, Smokey the Night Elf Bear Druid? Or something like that. It's really fun.
Oh, for the burning,
the burning of Teldrassil, yes.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, thank you to all the new people that may have stopped by. Hope you enjoyed the show. See, now I'm gonna cough one more time, and then my voice is gonna go back up to being higher. So,
or you'll just enter a coughing fit and not be able to stop.
I was coughing so hard at some points. You ever cough so hard you gag?
Yeah,
It's
been
really
a while, but
frustrating.
yeah.
Been
I hate
there,
it.
been
I
there,
do it
done
all the
that.
time. Do it all the time. I held that one
Need
in.
to work on your gag reflex.
Okay.
I guess.
I guess so. We are going to get out of here. I don't have time for a post-show game. I gotta get to bed.
Do you, TBK?
Just TP Gizmo.
I've got to get some other stuff done, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff. I need to scroll up and get the title of the episode because I don't remember what that was. It was just a lot of weird letters. But thanks for stopping by, everyone. And again, we'll see you all same time, same place next week.
I
Hopefully.
got the title. I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.